The Caribbean is often described as the most tourism-dependent region in the world. A titan is described as one that stands out for greatness of achievement, one who is influential in his field. I'm Marlene Stevenson-Daly. Welcome to our podcast. We call it Tourism Titans. It's about the movers and shakers of the industry, men and women who have contributed to its growth and development in Jamaica, the region, and indeed, the world. Delighted to have as my guest today, Josef Forstmayr. He has been welcoming guests to Round Hill Hotel and Villas since he began as managing director in 1989. Under his direction, Round Hill has won countless prestigious awards and accolades, including the World Travel Awards Best Villas for all of 6 consecutive years. They have won the AAA's 4 Diamond Award of Excellence, the Brass Key Award for Most Romantic Resort, and has been featured on Condé Nast Traveler's Gold List and Travel + Leisure's World's Best List. There's so many things I could say about my special guest today, but I'll allow him to share some of that with us later on. Let me welcome Josef Forstmayr. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Marlene. It's such a pleasure and a real honor, to not just listen to you, which I do very often, but to actually be with you.
I am absolutely delighted to have you. And today we're going to take us back a little bit in time and talk about your journey and all of the things that you have been able to accomplish along the way and some of the things that you perhaps still dream of. All right? So let's start at the beginning. You came to Jamaica all the way from Austria. What brought you to Jamaica?
Well, I wanted to get older. I mean, that was really my reason. I came out of my university studies and I did tourism. I was a little too young to get a really good job yet. So I thought, let me see the world, let me explore, where I like it best. And I left and came and hired on with Gilly Biles and his wife Annelie at the Coconut Cove Hotel in Negril as a tutor for their 5-year-old boy Daniel, to teach him German, because Annelie was German, Gilly was Jamaican, and they needed somebody to basically speak German with their son. And I thought, what? It's a hotel. I just come out of hotel school. I'll show them what I can do. Little did they know that, after a week of tutoring, I actually became, very involved in the hotel business. And when you're straight out of school, everything better than everybody else.
Yes, and you want to show what you're made of, the stuff you're made of.
And to me, Gilly Biles and Coconut Cove was just an amazing place. And Negril in the late 70s was just an incredibly beautiful environment. And Gilly had a very strong passion of doing the best of Jamaica, showcasing the best in terms of building a structure on the beach that used local materials, his own furniture from his workshop in Anchovy, to thatching a beach bar before anybody even thought of doing a thatched beach bar, from having a grill with lobster and fresh fish on the beach. And to combine a sort of a very low-key elegance, where tables had tablecloth on the sand, but the waiters had bow ties and white shirts and black trousers, but they were rolled up and everybody walked barefoot and they all looked good. He had a reggae band led by the famous Silly, we called him at the time. Before anybody else played reggae in Jamaica, everybody was playing other music.
Yes.
And so Gilly really was an incredible inspiration, and it's very heartening to see that his son John Biles actually has picked up right where his father also left off in many ways, to really bring out the best, and that's what my introduction was to Jamaica, and I just simply fell in love with it right away and got busy, and before you know it, you get busy and you get busier and you think, it's another year, and give it another year, and so they move.
And until before you know it, you're
I've been
Jamaican.
here. I'm Jamaican, exactly. And somebody said to me once, Joseph, when did you become more Jamaican than Austrian? I said, well, I still talk like an Austrian, actually. I never dropped my accent. I know. But on the other hand, I am culturally Austrian, but I'm emotionally Jamaican. And I can't say when it happened, but at one point in my life, I just sort of aligned myself more with the country I chose to live in and fall in love with it. And I love everything about it. I mean, I've said this to the great annoyance of many people. I always say I love the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes,
I wish I could fix a lot of things, but I accept it, and I want to do the best I can to make it better, and to do my little bit, to make
in
it
your
happen.
corner as much as you can. Take us back to Austria, though. You grew up in...
Well, I was born in Steyr,
Yes.
which is a beautiful medieval town, one of the great sort of medieval centers for mining and iron in the mountains of Austria, and one of the great sort of centers where the whole industrialization in the Middle Ages started. So it's a beautiful town, and the town I came from is close by, called Haag. Which has always consisted of 5,000 people. When I left, it became 4,999. It's the kind of place where you're all related, you all know each other, you all have been in farming and horse breeding and restaurants and it's very much a country environment, but full of people that know you, that you grew up with, and I was very fortunate to have parents that encouraged their children to go out in the world and get a decent education and make sure that you see the world. But then always come back home, because there is business to be taken care of. Now little did they know that their youngest, Joseph, never made it home.
Never made it back. All right, so you flew the coop and you just didn't make it back. But what was it like growing up? Did you have siblings?
Yes,
Lots of aunties, uncles? Was it an
we
extended family?
Big
type
family.
thing?
Not unlike Jamaica in many ways. I mean, our families are very close communities, close knit, and we all look after each other. We was brought up in a big old house where grandparents and great grandparents and uncles and cousins all lived, but they all had their own spaces. So you did not sit on top of each other, but you all looked out for each other, then I brought up Catholic, so that was a very important part of my education. I was sent to a Catholic boarding school, and so I mean I learned how to navigate through very strong disciplinarian sort of rigorous schedules.
Yes,
and,
I've been there.
But actually enjoy it. I mean,
Yes.
whereas some of my brothers, I have older brothers and sisters, may not have enjoyed it as much as I did. I mean, I guess when they broke the rule, there was consequence. Joseph finally came along, and by that time everybody was exhausted. So they
just let you be.
They gave me my space. But I had a great childhood, and you learn how to ski. You do all the things Austrian boys do.
Your fondest memory?
My fondest memory, just hiking and skiing and traveling and exploring, and that is something that I have actually been able to really sort of take with me and do here and really be curious and always be curious, never be afraid of getting lost, and always sort of just going
like you did on the
today.
way.
But that shows you a typical Joseph. Joseph thinks he knows exactly where he's going, and it must be there, but yet I'm going exactly in the opposite direction.
I never say I get lost. I always say I'm discovering new places. I just turn off and, all right, so I bumped into something that's so different.
Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
I mean, and you always run into the most interesting people,
Yes,
and you always discover something that is completely unexpected, and that's how I love my life. I don't like, to be in a routine too much.
Yes. All right, so you came to Jamaica in 1979. You spent time at Coconut Cove in Negril, and it sounded like it was a very important and very interesting period where you learned a lot.
Yeah, it was the late 70s, remember, mainly. And I had no idea about Jamaican politics. All I know is that you couldn't get enough to buy in the supermarkets, and I
Yes.
was in charge of purchasing things. So we used to take a truck to Linstead to just buy cows and pigs and whole, and and bring back produce because we didn't have enough food in the hotel. Or you go
wow.
to the supermarket in Stavlamar and you have to marry certain things
Yes,
to
so you
certain
have to
things
get some
under the counter because
saltfish
yes,
with
exactly. With
washing soap.
Washing soap, exactly.
Or,
so it was a new experience for me, but it was all done with great sort of joy in many ways, and we got through difficult times, but it was a great learning experience for me, I must say, and it was a beautiful time.
Then you moved on from Coconut Cove in Negril. Was it to...
Well, I did well. I must say, Gilly, in a very short time, he had a great product. He obviously had Anneli, his then second wife, who was a very wealthy German lady who had basically, built his dream. Coconut Cove was a dream, was a very unique setting, a beautifully and very successful. And because of that, Gilly was elected to become president of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association. He became very, very successful in that business, and that allowed me then to be more involved. And he made me assistant manager in a very short time. I mean, within months actually, I was there to basically help them run the hotel, and I met incredible people there. That his aunt, Mrs. McHardy, and his another aunt who used to run Medical Associates, Mrs. March, who came and in their retirement helped to run the hotel along with us. So it very quickly sort of allowed me to sort of interact with some very unique and special people very quickly, and so it wasn't long until some other hotels looked at this incredible place called Coconut Cove that was doing so much better in the late Manly years when everybody was sucking salt and nobody could get business
through a wooden spoon.
Exactly. But we had business and we were always overbooked, and I never forget Mrs. McHardy, Gilly's aunt, who had this beautiful white head of hair. She was Cecil Langford's sister actually, and she used to sit there and in those days you had the reservation boards, you had tape that you had to put over the rooms in order to show them filled. I mean, now everything we do online, obviously.
Yes, it's totally
but she used to sit there
technology.
with all these overbookings and sticking off her fingers, saying, "Oh my God, where am I going to find space?" And we used to rent the hotel next door. Vita Hoshan had a beautiful hotel next door to Coconut Cove called, can't remember it right now, but we used to rent her hotel. And so because of that, obviously my name came up, and I was headhunted. I was headhunted by a German baroness, actually, who had just invested a lot of money in Port Antonio. Baroness von Stefani Terbusch was her name, and the baroness had bought portions of Trident and had done some major investments down there. And we all heard of her, but nobody really knew her. But I was headhunted by her general manager at Trident in April of 1980, sort of about almost a year after I'd got to Jamaica. And I was planning to go back to Austria, but then I thought, what, nothing ventured, nothing lost.
Yes.
Just ask for an insane amount of money. I was very young, obviously. I hadn't earned anything. Yes. I was earning, very little room and board and cigarette money. That was my remuneration because I wanted to learn.
Yes.
And so and when I told them what I wanted, they said, "Okay, yes." So
okay,
there
and you were
I was.
expecting, at least, wow, how much?
So I packed my bags and
to Trident.
Went to Trident on the 1st of August, 1980. And August 4, Hurricane Allen.
Very significant turn of events.
Swept away Trident. Trident was wash away, as we say, and there was a huge rock in the beautiful lobby of Trident, and we even made the big news items, and there was helicopters, because it was one of those weird hurricanes that basically came between us and Haiti through the Windward Passage and really made Port Antonio sort of its main target, and didn't do a lot of damage on the rest of the island, but Trident was completely destroyed.
How did you cope? What did you do?
Well, I mean, thank God there was Marguerite Gouron, somebody I met in Port Antonio just after I had arrived, and Pat Flynn, Errol Flynn's widow, who had a little shop at Trident. And both these ladies said, "You're not staying here. You're coming out of here." I said, "But where am I going? I'm staying here." She said, "No, you can't stay there. You've got to leave the hotel."
Did you have guests at the time?
All the guests had left. It wasn't very busy. It was August, so we didn't have a lot of business then. But I had just moved in, and I was very comfortably ensconced. But the lady said, "No, you're not staying in." The hurricane was at night, so they insisted that I come out and stay with them, and which I did, and thank God I did, because there was nothing left the next day. And so I ended up with my jeans and barefoot and a basic Lacoste, a blue Lacoste shirt. I never forget. And I decided, this is it. That's all that's left, because my clothes, everything was
gone.
And basically I wandered around the hotel, and there was an instant there which really blew me away, and that really sort of gave me so much respect for Jamaica, because I had a lovely staff body there. I mean, the people were incredibly kind in Port Antonio, and many of them had worked for Earl Levy, who owned the hotel, who I had never met. I had never met Earl Levy, because he had just sold 2/3 of his resort to this German baroness, right, who hired me. And but everybody talked about Earl Levy and his vision and what he had done there, and it was fantastic. And the staff that has worked with him for many, many years, and that loved him very, very much. And there was Miss Icy, who was a housekeeper there, and the second day, I mean, as I'm wandering around all the rubble and
not knowing what to do,
nobody could come from Kingston because the roads were blocked. And occasionally a helicopter with sort of big news items was filming us down there. The staff came back, and they started to clear the place of the rubble. And I'd never seen anything like this. Where a woman who was in her late 60s, early 70s, very wiry housekeeper, Miss Icy, and she now had turned her head into a turban, and she was carrying heavy rocks on her head, strongly to clear the rubble off and to start sort of cleaning up the place. Yes. And that was without anybody telling anybody anything. I mean, to just get back and get the place set up again. And that, to me, was an amazing experience, and they fed me, because, there was these cookouts, that whatever we could find, some yam and some plantain and some cook, because there was no power. There was obviously no nothing. No nothing. I mean, no water, no power. We were abandoned in many ways, until finally the road opened up, and then Earl Levy, I never get. I met this gentleman. He drove up in this station wagon, heavily loaded with all kinds of goodies from Kingston, and he drives in. It was like a big sort of ship that arrived, this big station wagon, one of those Chevrolet numbers. And he comes out. He was this gentleman that sort of very properly attired, and he says, "I'm Earl Levy, and you must be Joseph." I said, "Yeah, I'm left, but what?" I mean, he says, "Well, we are going to rebuild the place. Do you want to stay and help me?" And I said, "You know what? I could never tell my parents I'm coming home. I mean, my father had warned me, 'Oh, you're going to be back in a month or two.'" So I said, "Okay," and I stayed, and the rest is history. And we rebuilt the hotel, and it became one of the great sort of places to attract an amazingly important luxury clientele. Became a movie center for making movies. We did Cocktails and Clara's Heart and In Like Flynn and Club Paradise.
Yes.
Natalie Thompson, obviously you know her well, I'm sure, was like the mover and shaker. And with Natalie and her team, we did whatever we could to attract movies to Port Antonio. And with Noel Mignot developing a new campaign for Port Antonio, where part of you will remain forever. It became sort of the true unique beauty place that everybody wanted to be, and Port Antonio has always done that. I mean, through its histories,
and it has that lure. And remember that is the cradle of tourism.
Absolutely,
in Jamaica.
that's where it all started. And then you look at Folly and Folly Ruins, and I love history. I mean, I always sort of try to dig a little bit and find out why certain places are the way they are, and it has, because of its natural beauty, because of the amazing people that are there, very resilient, very protective of what they have and how they do business down there.
Yes. One of the things that strikes me as well about Port Antonio is the diversity in such a small area.
Incredible.
You're on the beach, and within minutes you're in the rainforest, and it's just such a beautiful, calming space.
Absolutely. And it has attracted people, be they both from Kingston or be they international celebrities. I mean, from an Errol Flynn to the gentleman who was the founder of the big banana company that built Folly, I mean Mitchell, Mr. Mitchell, who then married Tiffany and built Folly, and to Senator Molson, the Molson Breweries in Canada, to Heine Thyssen, Baron Thyssen, who's still his daughter, who is Francesca now, still lives at Alligator Head, and so and Michael Lee Gin today. I mean, so there's a tremendous Michael Rosenberg founded Dragon Bay, and now Adam Stewart and first Butch Stewart and Adam Stewart. And so everybody falls in love with the place, and I think it does have that kind of allure, that is quite unique.
Yes, indeed. We're talking with Josef Forstmayr. He is the managing director for Round Hill Hotel and Villas, and you're listening to Jamaica's Tourism Titans. We're going to take a little break, but we'll be right back.
In tourism, the people are the product. Yes, they are one of our industry's most important assets. They help create memorable lifetime experiences. They, through their service, make the difference. We share the stories of their challenges and triumphs, of what makes them tick, of who they really are, just to inspire you to act positively. You too can be an ambassador for tourism and our country and become a Jamaican tourism titan. Start today.
TPDCO's Explore Jamaica has insights into licensed tourism entities across Jamaica. Visit the Google or Apple Play Store and download the app today.
Welcome back. You're listening to Jamaica's Tourism Titans. And my special guest is Josef Forstmayr, OD, JP, Managing Director of Round Hill Hotel and Villas. Now, his passion and enthusiasm for Jamaica and the Caribbean led to his appointment in April 2010 as President of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, that's the CHTA. And during his tenure, from 2010 to 2012, he worked to raise awareness of the importance of tourism throughout the Caribbean with the CHTA's Tourism is Key advocacy campaign. Joseph, tell me a little bit about your time as president of the CHTA.
Well, it was one of those moments when you really don't plan for something, but it just you have your role models, and role models that have contributed greatly, to Jamaica. I mean, one of them was Heinz Simonich, and somebody I had tremendous respect for. I mean, I was sort of this young, boy coming to the island, and there he was already a well-established, very successful hotelier who'd done it all, you know.
Yes.
And so in many ways it was for me, he was always my role model in many ways to sort of see how I can sort of follow in some of Heinz's footsteps. Obviously he was a former president of CHD, and we had talked about it at one time, and there was that moment when, I had been previously president of the CHDA, and the CHDA, hoteliers in the Caribbean asked me if I would be prepared to sort of move into that position, and so I agreed, and my manager, directors at the board of directors at Round Hill agreed that they would give me the time to do a decent job, and so I was elected in 2010 to become president, and I served for 2 years, and that is the president's term.
Right.
But I also wanted to make sure that I have something that I could hang my hat on. I mean, a real strong campaign in order to really drive tourism into the communities and drive it into the people's minds, because that's always sometimes tourism in the Caribbean, especially in the smaller Caribbean, is so important as an economic activity.
Yes.
But it doesn't quite, one, benefit the people as much as it should, and two, they don't quite get it. It
Yes.
always is viewed as something that is put in there from the outside. And so tourism is key really was critical in this, that we tried to encourage local production in terms of agricultural produce, but also both in terms of technology, locally made crafts and art items, so that each hotel that was investing in those areas could also have a locally produced component, because it does ultimately make your vacation so much more meaningful if you come from North America
Yes.
or Europe, when you really have a strong cultural link to the destination that you're in. And Jamaica has obviously led the way in that in many ways, even though we still have some way to go. But Jamaica has always had a very strong identity when it came to a Jamaicanness, whereas some of the other islands don't quite were able to establish that because of a lack of population size and history in many ways. But it still exists, and so that was one thing. And it was well adopted by the National Hotel Associations,
Yes.
because without the National Hotel Association, I wouldn't be president, because they have to elect you.
Yes.
Other islands have to elect you. And so it gave them all something to work towards and make sure that tourism becomes more relevant. And then convince their governments to improve and modify certain policies that hinder the development of tourism. And we are all aware of those. And taxes are on top of mind of everybody. So we fought quite on several fronts and lobbied hard with local governments to make it better, make the conditions better for the operators of small and medium-sized properties. And I think we also came through a difficult time, because it was the financial crisis at the time. If you remember, Lehman Brothers had crashed in 2008. So it was really sort of a difficult time to come out of that process and give a new focus to the industry. And I view my involvement as something that was, that had legs to
Yes.
stand on,
Yes.
and it could continue. And I'm so proud to see Adam Stewart right now, one of the great sort of minds of what we now know as the all-inclusive concept in the Caribbean, that has taken it to completely new levels, where the whole sort of campaign to ensure that as many of the locally produced materials are used. And TPDCO obviously has gone that way. The Ministry of Tourism has gone that way, but not just in Jamaica, but in many islands, because it really ultimately, tourism needs to be the driver of our economic activities, and then people will accept it and will protect it and will ensure that they benefit to the fullest extent.
And I think we're getting there. I believe we're getting there. And this is anecdotal, but just in terms of my own interactions, persons who perhaps in the past would say, "Oh, that don't have anything to do with me. Tourism is somebody else's business." I think we're making that connection and realizing that, in fact, yes, tourism is key. We are the most tourism-dependent region in the world, and everybody has to position themselves to see, how can I benefit? In what way? I might be offering some other kind of service over here, but how is it linked?
And I always used an example. I said, I come from a small village of Hopewell. Hopewell doesn't have enough people to warrant a major cable company laying any sort of major infrastructure to get there. But it's because of Round Hill
on the other
and
side.
Trial
Yes.
that now have that demand. Plus, we pay our bills. So therefore, we have to have good water. And there was a time when Hopewell had no water until we blocked the road, if you remember that correctly.
Yes, so
we all blocked that road.
including Joseph.
We were all part and parcel of that. And then now people have proper services.
Yes.
And it is due to the need where the industry is prepared to pay the required fees that to make this into a business and to get that service, and then people
and then everybody
benefit from it, and that is so important, because you never think in those terms until somebody sort of rubs your nose into it.
Yes. You are a director of the Jamaica Tourist Board. In fact, I'm sure I saw somewhere the Minister of Tourism, Honourable Edmund Bartlett, making some presentation and thanking
The longest
you
surviving
for your
director.
longest surviving director, 20 odd years on the board of the Jamaica Tourist Board. I mean, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, and I've survived every government in the process. Either they always give me space. No, but I have a passion, and I take no prisoners when it comes to just, hoping that we can. And again, that shows the strength of Jamaica. I mean, our political points are never scored in the tourism environment. We respect each other continuously, and nobody sees tourism as a political sort of advantage or disadvantage.
Yes.
And so therefore, it is one industry that brings us all together, and we continuously sort of work together to make it better. And yes, I am a survivor in that chair, I must say. I was just reappointed until 2024. I said, oh my
wow.
God.
Yes. So you are the longest serving member of the board, and I think that's quite an achievement. And as you said, no prisoners. You just know that whatever we do is for the best outcome here in Jamaica in terms of our tourism. Yeah. All right. So you received the Order of Distinction for contribution to Jamaica's tourism industry in 2005, and you were Hotelier of the Year for the JHTA in 1993 and 96. You got a Caribbean Hotelier of the Year award by the Caribbean Hotel Association in 2007, and I'm sure the list goes on. How does this make you feel?
It's interesting. I always say, if you stick around long enough, it may hit you at one point. I'm very appreciative of how good Jamaica has been to me, how incredibly wonderful the region has been to me, and it's I'm honored. I'm honored by it, but it's something that I love to do, and I enjoy doing it. I like to be recognized for it. I think we all like recognition.
Yes.
But I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I truly love what I do, and I've always said that. And I give Jamaica again full credit for allowing me that opportunity. I mean, that's not always the case as an immigrant. That you can go somewhere and you can rise to the top if you work hard and if you like what you do. Yes. But Jamaica has that incredibly wonderful liberal mind to allow that. And that's something that we can teach the world. Let us not lose that. Let us not lose that sort of openness to allow others that may not be, our color, may not be our culture, may not be our background, but to come in and that wish to be part of it and give them an opportunity and do that. And we should clone that. I've said that once to a former prime minister. I said, don't turn into this sort of, blinkers, because it doesn't happen like this in other islands, by the way. Other islands are a lot more protective of their own citizens only. And Jamaica truly lives that out of many one people. And it's a huge asset, because it's not common and it's not everywhere. I mean, we all know, where we have run into barriers. Yes. But Jamaica can truly be sort of a unique and a place where we can be very proud of that.
Yes. What do you like to do in your spare time, if you have any spare time?
I love to hike. I mean, I like to just go in the bush and just go hiking.
Have you been up to Nanny Falls?
No. I mean,
put that on your list.
I have a lot of. I mean, usually when I go hiking, I always sort of find water, because I love water and I love to go swimming. And I must say, what COVID has taught me, when you sort of more or less lock down close by, I'm not very good at this. I have to get out. So, instead of driving anywhere, I just get out and walk into the hills. And before you know it, you find a river, you find a spring, and you find a mountain, you find a mountaintop and a valley. And then you occasionally have, after 2.5 hours, you have to turn around again. But you've found some amazingly beautiful places.
And you're able to navigate your way back.
And I navigate back, and sometimes I do better than others. I never forget, there was this one moment when I started at Great River on the border, to St. James and Hanover, in the Chester Castle area, Seven Rivers area, and I was sort of turning around on myself, and I had a machete. You walk with a machete.
Yes.
So, I copy the farmer. I try to hold it the right way too. So when I'm caught walking on the road, people don't think I'm an absolute idiot. But I must say, after about 4 hours, and I barely sort of knew where I had reached, I was close to Betheltown, and I recognized all of a sudden the area. I was lost, but I had come out in the Betheltown area.
Wow, that's
so
a little
that
way
was
away.
a long way. I mean, it was
Yes.
like a 4.5 hour hike.
Oh my
So, but now I had to get back to where I had my car, which was all the way down at Anchovy area, So, so my
You got a lift back?
No, but my machete became a walking stick kind of thing along the road. I wasn't about to get off the main road anymore. So here I'm walking down now onto the Chester Castle main road.
Oh
and
my
onto
goodness, that's a long way.
and some people stopped. They said, "Are you okay?" And I did not want to get into anybody's car. So I said, I'm not doing that. But I got a few phone calls afterwards saying, "Joseph, we saw you sort of on your knees kind of thing, walking with a machete. Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." But but that's, to me, that's a joy. I mean, just to go and explore the countryside.
Mm-hmm. You're a lover of Jamaican art as well.
Yes.
Yes. Who do you?
Well, I came to Jamaican art this sort of roundabout way, very much by learning from collectors, and Mike Campbell, who has one of the greatest art collections, and David Boxer. So I started out with that, a little bit. Whenever I could afford a little something, I bought something. Then obviously coming to Montego Bay and to Round Hill, I met Albert Artwell, who always wanted something and needed something, and I wanted to support him because I did like his style very much, and his wife Dolores Anglin. And so I bought as much as I could. Every time he needed some money, I bought some of Albert Artwell's. And some of my pieces right now are actually in the present exhibition at the Montego Bay at the Montego Bay Cultural Center.
Yes, and before we have to wrap it up. Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing at the Montego Bay Cultural Center, which is formerly the old courthouse, which was burnt down and rebuilt. And I know the Tourism Enhancement Fund. The tourism ministry had quite a hand in that, and
it really goes back. It was the idea actually, because it needed work. The building was falling. I mean, it had been rebuilt, under P.J. Patterson in order to be rebuilt, but it really had no purpose. It was a civic center, but without any real purpose, and it was a shame because it needed to be maintained properly, and it was really the brainchild of the then Senator Noel Slowly, and who also sat on the Tourism Enhancement Fund and was the chairman as well. That it would be a good idea to sort of endow it with some money, as long as there is a bipartisan group. It cannot be political, and that would manage it. And it was Lloyd B. Smith, very much our governor in Montego Bay, that sort of had the brilliant idea to turn it into a museum space. And they asked me as a neutral person if I would be interested to do that, and I've always felt it was necessary to have something there. And we got people both from the private sector and public sector on it, and the municipal corporation in those days, it was the St. James Parish Council, was incredibly generous to give up the running of the building and hand it over to the Montego Bay Arts Council, which we have to this day. And we have on it the National Gallery, the National Museums, we have the Institute of Jamaica on it, we have the Chamber of Commerce on it. It's the government is on it with the municipal corporation and the mayor and his management, and private sector. And so we operate it, and we have in it, we have maintained it. The Tourism Enhancement Fund, thank God, is continuing to support it. It is a National Gallery West. Now we now have the art that is only in the National Gallery in Kingston can now also be seen in a beautiful space in Montego Bay. You have National Museum there, which shows the whole development history.
Right.
That is mostly important for our visitors as well, and our schools and our children that grow up in the area to know, what is it all about, And then we have a beautiful exhibition space that we use right now for the Rastafarian exhibition that has been going on for several years, which I think is a huge hit and is very, very important important. And I think,
but you do have different exhibitions from time to time, and so persons
Yes.
can come in from the community.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely. And the National Gallery West tries to always have an attractive new exhibition at least 2-3 times a year.
Yes.
And right now we are showing the art of Albert Artwell, and his and that is.
So some of your pieces would probably be in
some
that.
of them are in there, and
Yes.
O'Neill Lawrence, who is our curator
Yes.
at the National Gallery, has some of my pieces in there. But it's a really interesting exhibition that celebrates the artists of Western Jamaica. I mean, that really is our core sort of motto as well. We really focus on Western Jamaica, give Western Jamaican artists a showcase that is the best that it can be.
Josef Forstmayr, as we close, what do you say to your housekeeper, your bartender, your average worker at Round Hill in Jamaica's tourism industry in 2023, when things are starting to bubble? Yes, things are starting to really look very promising in terms of our tourism industry at this time.
Well, I mean, I am in a privileged position, obviously, at Round Hill, and it's something that I've inherited there when I got there in 1989. I mean, we have always had John Pringle's motto of looking after the community, making sure the community benefits as much as possible from where you are. And therefore, I have the privilege to work with people that have been there for 2-3 generations. We've just had an incredible long service awards where we had many of our staff that's been there for over 40 years.
Wow.
So we are all learning from that. And what I learned from that incredible loyalty is a passion to really care, and to care for your visitors, to care for the place, to be proud of it, and to therefore also care for your community. Because, Hopewell is a very special place. I mean, it has its sort of little rough spots, but by and large it's upwardly mobile. I mean, you see a lot of beautiful big houses going up all around, and it's people that live and work in the industry. So there is a tremendous future there in the industry. That's not just on basic pay. I mean, we're talking a future that will provide for better education for your children, for better health care, for a better future for everybody. And I think that is a real core value of what we represent, because that's all we can do. We have to make it better for the next generation.
Thank you so much, Josef. It's a wonderful note on which to end our little chat today. And I want to thank you for your steadfastness. You have been here for a pretty long time, and you have thrown yourself right into the community. You have really made yeoman contribution to our industry. And we thank you. We thank you so much for all you do and continue to do, and for all that you will do in the future.
Thank
because
you.
I know that this year is going to be a really great year for Jamaica, and you're poised, along with your team at Round Hill, to take us to another level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marlene. It was a real pleasure and an honor to be with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And there you have it. Jamaica's Tourism Titans, the 9th episode. And we thank you so much for joining us and look forward to having you on the next ride. Thank you so much for listening to Tourism Titans. We welcome your feedback at letusknow@tpdco.org. Leave us a comment, share, like, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TPDCOJA. I'm Marlene Stevenson Daly. See you soon.